you keep like freezing on the audio once in a while, so I don't know if I was responding to you in a normal way, but I think we're okay, but we'll be good. Hey everybody, welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with John Hines.
Hey there.
And it's just the two of us this week. I had to catch myself. I was like, I got to stop saying, I think every time we've ever done like a duo episode, I'm like, and you're stuck with just the two of us every time. Mm-hmm. I think even on like the save it for the cast intros, half the time I do that. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I gotta not do that once on one of these intros, not be like a total robot autopilot or whatever. But yeah, just the two of us this week. Randall's getting some family time in, which is always good. I think some pretty extended family time. I feel like they've been hanging for a while, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. But yeah, John and I have a bunch of games to dig into as always, and we got a game right off the bat that we've both been playing. I've been playing quite a bit of, especially because I've been traveling back and forth to Michigan, both for getting ready to move back to Michigan, and then also, unfortunately, my aunt passed away recently, so in a good way, on the bright side, I was able to take an extra load of stuff home. Mm-hmm. But I was like, I'm not going to take my Switch home with me. I'm not going to pack everything up. I took my 3DS home with me. I actually got started a little bit on Zelda Link Between Worlds. I'll save that for another time because I only played about like the first, probably not even an hour, which is hilarious because I got maybe like an hour or most. It was actually kind of great to just get right into a Zelda game like pretty quickly. Like there was like an opening cutscene and stuff, but pretty brief, especially for a Zelda game. And like because it's top down style, you just kind of get right into it. And I was like, okay, I'm all about this. And I was cracking up though. Number one, I didn't realize that game's almost 10 years old now already.
Oh God!
It was like copyright 2013, and I was like, what? Have I really been waiting this long to play this game? But shoot, what was I just gonna say about the game? Okay. Oh yeah, I was gonna took me back to like the Wii era of Nintendo and stuff, because even I probably haven't even played an hour of the game, and it was like, hey, you've been playing for quite a while, maybe you should take a break. And I was like, man, I feel like Nintendo's pumped the brakes on that a little bit. They still throw stuff like that in there, maybe if you're playing like Ring Fit Adventure or something.
That's the only game that came to mind when I was thinking about that.
Yeah, maybe like Wii Sport, or not Wii Sports, but the new Switch Sports or whatever. Like they still do it here and there, or like, hey, you've been take a break or take turns, or I don't know. They do stuff like that here and there, but it was just hilarious. I was like, I'm not even done like really with the opening sequence of this game, I feel,
right.
And yet I'm getting told to take a break already. But anyways, that said, I didn't play a ton of that, but the 3DS was the only thing I brought with me. But I did have my phone with me, and I think I said recently, we mentioned POINPY on the podcast, which is the newest game from the Downwell developer. I think we just briefly mentioned it when we were talking about Into the Breach, because that came to Netflix, and I think I just mentioned, that same fact, like, oh, and yeah, there's another game on Netflix from the Downwell developer, and I think I said something to the effect of, oh, but I'm probably not going to ever play it because I don't have a Netflix account or whatever, and then I was like, oh, but my sister has a Netflix account, So I texted her, got her login information, logged in as my mom, and started playing some POINPY. I don't know why I felt like I shouldn't use her actual main account. I should use one of these extra users or whatever.
Sure.
So I started playing some POINPY, and I've been pretty hooked. I've actually been playing it like even when I've not been traveling. I've been like back and like, oh, you know what? I'm like either have a podcast playing on my phone or have, doing something else, like little breaks in between packing. Like, oh, I'm just throwing something on in the background, and I'm just playing some POINPY, and I've probably played like 4 or 5, maybe even 6 hours at this point. And I'm pretty hooked. I mean, I really enjoy I have a lot of gripes, so I'm going to dance around some nitpicks, but for the most part, it's really fun. Somebody right away when the game was announced or came out, I can't remember if that happened at the same time or not, but somebody's like, oh shit, the Downwell developer really just went and made Upwell. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's similar in a lot of regards, but
there's still gravity that
it's
goes
like,
down, but the progression is up.
Yeah, and it's a totally different kind of mechanics in the sense of like it's all about like kind of like it's more of like a hop and bop platformer, whereas like Downwell really kind of feels like it's a platformer, but it's like really a shmup at the same time. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like pretty much a lot of the things that like I love about Downwell are a lot of the things that are like kind of just bugging me about POINPY. Like as much as I'm loving the gameplay, I'm really, and I'm finding it really interesting too, because like a lot of people have been saying, and I was just even saying in the Discord, one of our buddies, Commodore Fez, was saying like sent like a really long thing of like, oh, I really love how it works, like just sent like a bunch of points, and I was like sent a really long thing being like, oh, I disagree on this and this and this, and I was like, oh, and I hope it doesn't sound like I'm like being super argumentative or like dismissive. Like I love that people have different opinions. I have a feeling that I even said I was like, I have a feeling John's gonna like kind of agree with a lot of what you're saying, but like for me, what I love about Downwell is like on the very first time you play Downwell, I mean, you're probably not going to be good enough at it to beat the game on your first try, but you have all the tools there to essentially beat the game on your first try. Where like I was playing POINPY and like you start out with like essentially one jump, and the gameplay works really well on mobile. It's like kind of like essentially like a one button, like you can kind of just put your thumb anywhere. It doesn't have to be your thumb, but you touch anywhere on the screen and then kind of like drag back, almost like kind of like Angry Bird style, like drag back in the opposite direction that you'd want to like fling your jump. And then there's like a good like kind of like almost like a golf arc shot meter that like shows your trajectory where you're gonna bounce off the wall. Shows a pretty good
time as well.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of different buffs. Like one of the first buffs you get is like this elephant or something, and it's like I think it's like unlimited slow-mo time while you're like holding down the like jump fling. And at first I was like, okay, cool, you're going to unlock a bunch of different buffs and you have one buff slot that you can use. But like now that I've played for 4, 5, 6 hours or whatever, I have, I think up to either 3 or 4 buff slots now. And then I have, I think 6 jumps. Like when I unlocked the 3rd jump, I thought like, okay, you're probably going to have a triple jump. And that's like max. And then even one of the buffs is an extra jump. So like I technically could have 7 jumps right now. I feel like I have enough right now where I'm like, I don't even need to use that buff anymore. I was using it at first. But that's kind of my gripe about the game. I just feel like the way the progression works, like at this point, now that I have the jumps I have, like the way you basically like rank up your combos, you like have to collect fruit on the stage. And like as you get further, you have to actually even like dodge certain fruits. They'll be like just a combo that you have to essentially get. But then you can stack up even more than that. Like if you get like the 2 blueberries you need, like at first you really just need to get like 1 blueberry or 1 cherry or whatever. I don't think it's a cherry, whatever the red fruit is, tomato.
Yeah, blue fruit, red fruit.
Yeah. But you grab those, and then like for every extra one you grab. So for example, like right off the bat, when you have 1 or 2 jumps at the start, I think you just have the 1. It's obviously you're only going to be able to get that like 1 fruit, or maybe you can get like 1 extra. Now I'm able to like get a combo that literally shoots me through like the first 2 zones in like 1 combo right off the bat, because I'm able to like collect with 7 jumps. I'm able to just be like boom, 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 and it like cranks me up to rank like 10 or 12 right on the first combo. And it doesn't necessarily shoot you right to the next zone, but it's like I just feel like the progression just is really like, if this game wasn't designed around being a mobile game, which it's done very thoughtfully and very well in that regard, both around this like kind of grindy structure. If it is just going to be, hey, I'm just playing this game on my commute every day, or I'm playing this game in the morning while I'm sipping on my coffee, or I'm just like playing it casually here and there. But like as a game where I'm like, because even like I was kind of like not getting annoyed, but like a lot of people were saying like, oh, but like you got to admit the game's like definitely like perfectly like ideally designed to be on mobile. And I'm like, I gotta disagree with you there. I still would rather play it with the gamepad, like, because I feel like it could work great in a couple different ways. You could either you could have it play like without even pushing a button, and you just like flick the joystick in the direction, like just kind of like the same way you push it down and then pull back in the direction that you want to fling the character, like slingshot style.
Yeah.
But you could also do it where you like press a face button and then aim and then release the face button to launch your character. Like I feel like there's just plenty of ways it would work great with a controller too. So I'm like, it's very thoughtfully designed and plays great on a touchscreen, but I still feel like my thumb's in the way a lot of the time. And I still would rather play it on a screen and play it on on Tate mode on the Switch, vertical screen, or even just on a regular screen with arcade borders or whatever. I still would just rather play it that way. But that said, I do think it plays really satisfying, like to just like, bounce the way that wall jump works kind of automatically, and you can recharge both your jump and the wall jump by smashing down on other enemies. And it just feels really satisfying to like start getting better at like doing the like because you can cancel like your jump at any point to do like a ground pound, or cancel like you just fall straight down. And if you're the higher you land on either an enemy, or like there'll be pots on the ground that sometimes have fruit in them, the higher you are that you smash down on those from, like you will just do like a massive spring if you land on those from way above. But yeah, I really love the gameplay. I really love how like if the little like creature that's kind of chasing you from the bottom, like if you don't get the combo of fruits in time, like as long it's kind of like basketball or like football, like the buzzer beater play, like you get that last second of like, as long as you're airborne before the timer ticks down, like you still can like bounce, especially now that I have 6 or 7 jumps. It's like I can be like, oh, one last chance, let me try to get this combo. So I'm having a blast playing this game, but I'm like still being like, I wish like it's just annoying to be like, I just had to play all these runs to unlock more buff slots and more like to make the game more forgiving and easier to play. It's just a weird structure. I get why it works that way, but it's just annoying too. But I didn't expect to ramble and go on that diatribe right off the top. But what have you been thinking? I know I've probably played more POINPY than you have, but I know you've played a decent amount. Yeah, I think you even dug into it before I did.
Yeah, I actually got it on iPad, which I didn't even realize that like, yeah, I could be probably playing it vertically, because I am playing it with like the arcade borders where it only like occurred to me once you said that you were playing it on your phone or whatever, that I was like, yeah, that's probably the ideal platform to do it, because it is a like was Downwell also originally a mobile game?
It was, yeah, but it didn't have anywhere near as slick. Like it had like just straight up like the 2 arrows on the bottom and then a shoot button like off to the. So it was kind of clunky, especially because in Downwell you're going down and the buttons are at the bottom of the screen, so your thumbs are really. Even if your thumbs aren't there, the actual buttons are kind of in the way of the action. Like because you're kind of trying to in Downwell, you're really trying to look at what's coming, especially if you're trying to go for combos and stuff. I mean, I'm sure people are amazing at that game on mobile. Like there's people that are good at it, I'm sure, but I bought it after having played it on console, just being like, oh, it's $3. I'm just going to support the developer. But I have not been able to enjoy playing that game. Whereas POINPY, I'm enjoying the heck out of playing it on mobile. Like
nice.
Like I said, I mean that with a grain of salt. Like I only mean to argue with the people that are like, it's designed perfectly for mobile. I'm like, it would work just as good in other platforms too. It just works really well, and it's very thoughtfully designed around being a mobile game. I totally agree there.
Yeah, but I've actually been mostly playing with my index finger on like an iPad, like on my lap, not really like holding it with one hand or whatever. Just like which is I think it's controls, again, like you were saying, like really well in terms of like the tactile response, as opposed to playing with a controller. And like I didn't really like. It never really occurred to me of like, oh, like would I prefer it like playing more as a controller game, or just like I think I kind of might maybe agree with the idea like, oh, it's perfectly crafted for mobile. But
well, hey, that's what I was saying. Hey, I was like, I know you're going to agree with Commodore Fez more than me,
but I will say that at least for me, I do. I think we had a little bit of discussion like separately when we were first talking about this game, where it's the difference between a roguelike and a roguelite, or like the arcade aspects of Downwell versus the more progression aspects of POINPY, where at a certain point, like when I was playing Downwell, and I gave Downwell a pretty fair shake. I think I got to like maybe whatever World 3. I don't know what the way that they describe it, where like at least like it was a third environment as opposed to like
there's like four biomes or whatever in Downwell, and then like a final boss or whatever. And I actually don't know. I haven't beaten POINPY, or I'd maybe not even come close, because the progression works a little differently. Like you get to different zones by like ranking up, like filling up that meter like I was talking about earlier. So you can like get to new zones pretty quickly, but POINPY will then, once you unlock more zones, it'll shuffle them in randomly. So after you unlock like the lava zone or the water zone, like that might be now the first zone that you play, which is kind of interesting. I do like that mix up of like, oh, every time you play, it's like going to be fresh.
That's cool. I actually haven't gotten to that part yet, but like with Downwell at the very least, like I got to a point where I was like, okay, I kind of feel like I've plateaued, and I don't know if I'm necessarily like interested enough to like really like dedicate myself and get better and be like, yeah, I'm gonna beat this game by like just playing this over and over again until like I actually improve and get good enough to beat this game. Whereas like POINPY, it as like the mobile, like more casual progression system or whatever, like I was definitely like every run was at least accomplishing something, and that I was moving forward and unlocking a new thing, or like getting a new buff slot. And at the very least, I was like, it wasn't necessarily like oppressive is too much of a like way to describe it, but like at a certain point, I was like, I think I've seen all that I am willing to see in Downwell. Whereas like POINPY, I'm like, hey, if I come back in like, I don't know, a month after having not played it, or like even a year of having not played it, like I can pick it back up and like I will have done something productive with my time, which is a whole other thing. But like,
no, but I know what you mean. Like, especially since it is on like a phone or on your iPad or whatever, like if it is like, hey, you and Lauren are kicking back watching something that you're half invested in, and you're like, the icon catches your eye and you're like, let me play a couple POINPY runs, and then you unlock something or whatever. I guess I just kind of like even in Dead Cells is kind of like the obvious example of like you have no chance to beat that game on your first try until you unlock a bunch of new weapons and a bunch of new this and that or whatever. But have you played any of the puzzle mode in POINPY?
I haven't even unlocked puzzle mode, I don't think.
So it's like I really like how like with like the start of your runs, like there's like that interactive like title menu screen, and you can like jump up and slam down on the like creature that chases you up to the top, or you can either jump to the room to the left where you can like there's kind of like a slot machine where you can like buy the new buffs and upgrades or whatever that you can use and equip or whatever. Or you can go off to the right, and if you go there at first when you only have a jump or two, you won't be able to get up there, but there's like a throne chair like hanging up at the top. And once you have like 3 or 4 jumps, you can like, I can't remember how many I had by the time I got up there, but you can knock it down and then you go and sit on that throne, and it's so cute. Like I think the main character's name is POINPY. Maybe the creature that chases you is POINPY. But like POINPY gets in like this little pose and like puts like the thumb on their like they're like thinking and like sitting on the chair, and then there's like a bunch of puzzle levels that are like, hey, collect all the fruit and whatever. I've only done like 5 or maybe 10 of them. I can't remember if I did the first row or the first 2, but it kind of Commodore Fez was saying in the Discord, and I totally agree with this. Like that does a good job of kind of teaching you. Like I got better at doing that, like cutting off my jumps and stomping, because I had to learn like, okay, I got to recharge my jump on that pot. Mm-hmm. So I have to land on that pot. And the only way that at least that I can see to do it is to like slam down on it and cut my jump off. But it does.
That rules.
They didn't feel totally scripted though, like in the sense that there's only one solution to this. Right. It felt like, it's dynamic enough of a game, expressive enough of a game where, it felt like you could really kind of like, I didn't think I was going to make it, but that wall jump just got me there. So I don't know. I'm torn in a lot of ways, but I'm having a blast, and I love the music, which is funny because I know the first time you played, you were like, "Hey, is there any music or any sound?"
Because I had put my thing on silent, and that
same
like,
with my phone. Yeah.
It. Yep.
Yeah, but the music is amazing. Really gives me like Yoshi's Island and just like Yoshi game vibes. Like it's got that like kind of cheerful, bright energy, almost a little bit grating. Like I usually end up muting it after a few runs because I'm like, it's got that like high pitch, at least out of the phone speakers, it gets a little bit grating, but maybe if I put some headphones on. But yeah, really cool, charming game. And another random, I guess random, because nobody's apparently playing these Netflix games. Yeah. Every time I've mentioned POINPY, nobody even knows it exists, even though it's from the Downwell developer. Not that that's the hugest game in the world, but it's a pretty well-known indie game.
Yeah.
And then Into the Breach, which we talked about recently on the podcast, after it just got the massive update, thanks to like getting picked up or whatever, published, or this new version, whatever you want to call it, Netflix put it out, but we've been digging in on Switch, and I know you've been playing quite a bit more than me. Like I said, I didn't bring my Switch home with me on the vacation, but I did the first time, and that's when I really dug in. But I didn't get a chance to play with any of the other squads. I've still been playing with Blitzkrieg. I'm just addicted. I've got to win with that squad before I move on because I'm just in the headspace of like, this is how the puzzles work. This is how the game works.
But then the puzzles work completely differently with each squad. It's so
I love that.
Unbelievable.
I just don't want to shift my mindset because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to start struggling.
But then you start thinking about everything. Like this game makes you think about puzzles in so many different ways. Like it is.
It's kind of incredible.
It is like
we've said this before.
Yes, I don't think it's hyperbole. Like I think this is one of the greatest developed game. Like
it's a masterpiece.
Perfectly crafted games of all time. Like it is unbelievable because I've played a couple. I think I played the Heat Sinkers and the Mistwalkers, and then I just unlocked the Arachnophiles. And those are
you mentioning that.
Yeah, they're all new squads because it basically doubled the amount of squads that you have in the game in addition to
I was wondering that because I remember at first you were like, oh, there were already a second page, and I was like, oh, I don't remember that, but I remember I was like, oh, maybe they just added a couple new ones, but okay, they did pretty much double down.
It's not entirely a double, but it's almost the amount.
They added
things.
a lot.
They added so much new content in addition to new challenges, new content in it, but just from the first two that I unlocked, which were the Heat Sinkers and the Mistwalkers, those completely revamp and are based around different environment things that you can do, and it just unlocks entirely new parts of my brain solving puzzles, and I was like, God, I don't get this, and I especially don't get this with a game that has been out for years. This is so wild.
And like you said, I think what makes it such a masterpiece is because for real, they just pretty much, give or take a few or a couple squads, they pretty much doubled down on the squads. And this game could really, for real, exist with just one of the squads. It could be, and it would be a totally robust, awesome, tactical roguelike game. I mean, it obviously wouldn't have the depth that it does have, but they could, have they could add different types of challenges even more than they have, I'm sure. And that could be a standalone game in and of itself. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they were just okay, we already had I think there were 8 or 10 in the base game or 12 or something. And they added maybe 8 or 10 or 12 more. Not that many, but I don't know, 6 or 8 or however many. But it's just crazy that essentially each of those could be a standalone game in the sense that they are their own pretty bespoke mechanics that make you rethink every single enemy, every environment, everything.
And we've really only been talking about the gameplay part of it, but honestly I think the setting and win and fail states are so incredible in the idea of and that they make sense within the setting of the
permadeath and
a doomed timeline. When you fucked up and you completely failed on this run is all right, I'm just jumping to a next timeline, see if I can save that version. And I was like, this fucking rules.
All the little dialogue bits, there's not a ton of writing, but the little bit that's there is such great flavor. Even if it's just the little comic book style speech bubbles that pop up Daddy, the Vecker here or whatever.
Yeah.
I guess they're not celebrating when the Vecker here, but whatever the little
the buildings when they're
you get used to it. There's a lot of the same stuff after a while, but it adds a little extra flavor to the game. And the music, again, I could gush about Ben Prunty all day long.
Oh God,
just a master. I get some Donkey Kong Country vibes at times from the soundtrack, just in the moody atmosphere, some of the kind of underwater levels or something. I don't know. I'm just yes. I'm just again, because I did all those streams with the headphones on, I'm just man, I'm just vibing out to this game right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really. I really hope that the Netflix games pick up a little bit in the sense that I'd love for more people to discover these games. Because I was kind of surprised. I made a few posts on. I might have even said this when we talked about the game before, but I made a few posts on our different social medias and just saying oh yeah, hooked on this game again, and didn't make a mention of what the game was because I figured everybody would know. And people are oh, hey, what's the name of this game? Or I posted like our stream video and they're like, oh, thank God somebody posted this. Like I've been looking to find this game somewhere. And like somebody even said like, hey, the person sitting next to me on the plane was playing this and I was wondering what game it was.
Nice.
But I thought like I almost felt bad that I didn't put the name of the game because I was like, oh man, maybe more people didn't know this game. I thought it was like one of those like, yeah, almost like Downwell level, like indie, massive hit. Everybody knows this game.
There's always going to be someone who doesn't know. Like,
yeah. Again, back to that what we always say. There's just a million games. Yeah. Can't keep track of all of them. So, yeah, why don't we toss it over to you? I know you've been kind of wrestling between a few different games here, and I guess while we're on the sort of Netflix track, we can sort of talk about some subscription. Or I don't know. Can you do a subscription based situation here?
Kinda. So we've been. I know that I've mentioned it like offhand a couple times. I think I may have done like a full in-depth episode maybe when I first started playing Genshin Impact. Yeah. But like it's mostly, I think, every like recurring reference to the game. I think we've kind of been like maybe couched it in as like, yeah, I'm still playing this game, and I have a lot of complicated feelings about how I'm still playing this game.
Yeah, I've been under the impression of you been like, it's free, I'm hooked, and it's very fun, it's very good, but there's a lot of issues in the sense of like, yeah.
And I think like the tone that we're gonna go for this segment, I think, is a little bit more critical of just in the environment in general, because especially like I think there was a recent, I don't know if it was a New York Times article where it was like basically just a wholesale ad for like online sports gambling, and like it was,
I don't think I saw that.
Yeah, it was like so like kind of nakedly just like an ad almost for like online sports betting. And
was it the one that was like, it's just inevitable? It's inevitable anyway. Yeah, yes. Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, and like I've got a lot of complicated feelings about Genshin Impact in light of like, I don't know what you would even call it, like the atomization of like gambling in like as an industry at large. There was a really good episode of Game Study Buddies, which is a podcast I listened to that was specifically about the book Addiction by Design, and it is talking a lot about how gambling as a industry, obviously like preys upon people with gambling addictions, but like it is so tailor-made to like funnel like people with addiction into giving as much money as possible and making it as easy as possible to like siphon as much money away from those people who have like addiction.
Yeah, nobody knows what a slot machine's doing. Like even the few times I've like gone to a casino, I usually don't do the slot machines, but like even when I win a little bit, which I never do, but right. Even when I do like win one on like a poll of the handle or whatever, I never know why. Like I'm like, what lined up here? I don't know why I just won.
And there's like, honestly, like the world of difference between like physical in-person gambling and like these online gambling like conglomerates.
Or like there's like all these like sports betting apps and stuff now, like you can just like, if you're in the right, I think you still have to be in like a certain state or whatever, but it is, so it's not nationwide yet, but it will be, I'm sure.
I mean, it has never been easier.
It's inevitable
to completely, but it is so easy for you to just completely annihilate your life, like at the push of a button. And that is what all of these, like the industry of sports betting and like gotcha games in general, is just like an unbelievably efficient way of like just siphoning wealth off of people who have issues and addictions that they can't control. Like,
yeah, because it's like, it's not like somebody's like addicted to games. They just have an addictive personality. Like anybody, like I feel like I have an addictive personality in the sense that like I get like like thankfully with the Pursuing Pixels stuff, the podcast videos and everything, like I've been really kind of like maintain focus on games for a long time, but I always kind of do a thing where like I get really into games for a while, and then I'm really into movies, and then I'm really into music, and then I'm always like kind of like one track mind. Like I get kind of addicted to stuff. Like I can feel it, so I'm always like, okay, I gotta keep that in mind, that I definitely can feel that pull of stuff. So like, yeah, I just avoid stuff like this altogether. Thankfully, I don't have a huge draw to it, anyways. But
yeah, but like,
yeah, I totally know what you mean.
The main issue that I've been having with Genshin Impact as a game is that it is a game. It is a worldwide phenomenon at this point, and it has like some of the highest production values and like such a responsive like it on a daily basis of just like patches and like fully voiced cutscenes and characters and like in-depth story and really satisfying mechanics and progression loops. And it is an incredibly well-made game. And the only way that a game of this like size and production value can be made is if it is on a worldwide global scale preying on people's addiction. And like, there is a reason why every month it makes hundreds of millions of dollars. Like it is not because it's just a great game and like people like me are, like, I'm gonna like spend $5 this month and like get whatever in-game currency, like because I feel like it. It is specifically like ruining people's lives. And like that is a thing that I'm like, there's a reason why I haven't brought it up on the podcast, even though I'm literally playing this game every day and thinking that this is an incredible like
you're having a blast playing it.
This is an objectively good game in my eyes, but this game would not exist if it wasn't just ruining people's lives.
Now, how much? I wonder how much of that, like, could you buy stuff like? Because I feel like this is almost like the new. Not there's other games too in this category, but like kind of like the new World of Warcraft in that regard, where it's like people like. But I feel like that was more. Like, I guess, people would sell the characters for like crazy amounts of money, but I feel like it was more about like people just wasting their time. I don't know,
but like that was
you want to call it, had spending to have all their
PC
time doing
that could play it. You had to have an internet connection in the early 2000s that could play it.
And it wasn't cheap. The like monthly fee wasn't cheap. I think it was like $20 a month, or maybe it was 10 or whatever, but it wasn't like negligible.
But this is like there's no limit. Like
and the game's free up front. Yes. I feel like that's what makes it so much more predatory.
It's 100% playable on mobile. Like if you have a phone, you have a like console that can run this game.
And these days, if you have a kid that you're like ever sending anywhere without you as a parent, like if they don't have a phone, you're like almost being irresponsible.
Yeah.
In some ways, obviously you can argue both sides of the point, but like. If you're like sending them to school, you want them to be able to call, hey, I got to come home earlier. Well, you want to probably give them a phone, and then, you can put the child protections on there or whatever, but they can probably still figure out a way to download a game,
And it's at some point, like, you can't just throw your hands up in the air and say, well, it's up to like people's own responsibility to like make sure that they're not like taken advantage of. Is like, no, like there needs to be at least like, before sports betting was ubiquitous everywhere, before it was inevitable, like there were laws that banned it. And like there was a reason why you couldn't do that. And like, unfortunately, I don't think that that's a possibility, especially for something that like, Genshin Impact is a Chinese made game and it is a worldwide thing. And then unless every country like comes together and like has regulations like specifically against it, like there's no chance of that like genie going back in the bottle. And I also feel like, there's been a lot of the word that I'm looking for isn't crunch, because crunch has an entirely different connotation in this context. But like,
when it's constant crunch,
right, but like AAA games have had like kind of a paring down in like there aren't as many giant like AAA games that come out because they've gotten so expensive to make, and like they take so many years to make that the investment isn't there really for a lot of these companies to make the games of these size, unless you're Nintendo or like an Naughty Dog or some established like decades old studio. And I'm really frightened that people are going to look at how like Genshin Impact is making like money hand over fist and be like, well, let's just open it
same
up to
thing and maybe even subvert it even more. Like, how can we make it even more? How can we make even more money with this formula?
Yeah.
Put in less work and make the same amount of money, or
right.
And
And like,
it's and again, who even knows? I think you've touched on this before when we've talked about the game in the past, but like, who even knows about? And you touched about it just a second ago, but like the crunch factor for the employees working on the game. Like, who knows what the work culture is there at the studio?
yeah, it's a good game.
I'm glad you're still enjoying it. I mean, it's
so
again, for
good,
me, it's so
but, like,
easy to jump.
I feel awful. Like I truly do. Just like I don't know. Like it's the best game that I will never recommend to another person. Just because like I feel so gross. Like,
well, it's like me when I'm like torn between like I think I mentioned all that every time I mention like, oh, I got this on Amazon Prime, or I ordered this on Amazon. I'm like, I should cancel that by now, and I still haven't. I still have still got my Amazon Prime, and like I'll get a game, but like when I'm sitting there and I'm torn between like, okay, I'm gonna make some videos, and I'm like, okay, I could play this cool game that I got on Amazon Prime, or I could play this cool game that I got in the Itch.io bundle for racial justice and equality. Which one am I going to play? I'm going to play the game from the bundle, because I would rather give some love to that, even though, at the end of the day, it has nothing to do really. And hopefully, like we've talked about with Game Pass and stuff, I hope when they're on like Amazon Prime or Epic or whatever, when they're like these free games, if you're subscribed to these services or Netflix or whatever it might be, I hope the developers, publishers, and whatever are getting a decent deal and kickback on those ends, because I do like reaping the rewards on those fronts as far as Game Pass goes, especially.
Yeah. Ugh.
But yeah, I definitely feel you. It's hard to like get behind it,
Yeah.
But yeah, I know. I was gonna say, I know you've been torn between a few other games.
I've been playing some other games that I did the normal thing of I paid for them once, and now I'm just enjoying them for dozens and dozens of hours.
And kind of the more like traditional AAA style
honestly.
games. Although Monster Hunter is a little bit like that kind of like living game that they keep, adding more to it, but within reason, with a scope.
It's so funny, especially with Monster Hunter Rise in that specific instance, is where it's like there have been cases where I'm like, okay, I'm not like, I don't really want to like, spend the time that I'm logging in today, like progressing or like trying to tackle like the next big monster, but I don't really have any goals. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to hop into some random battles for other people and just like help them through it. Like just like put in my dues, like helping the community out, like not even doing things for my own selfish gain. I'm just like, yeah, I'll log into some lower level ranks and like just help people through and like start doing like, there are so many like meme communities of people who are like, all right, we're gonna like try to only like stun lock this enemy the entire time, or like, so I'm not doing anything like that, but there are a few times where I'm like going into like low rank stuff and I'm like, I play light bowgun. I was like, yeah, I'm only using the like normal ammo that you have. I'm not doing anything that does like actual damage. I'm just kind of like hanging out, making sure nobody's dying. If anybody is like in danger, then I'll step in, but like
Coach John almost.
Yeah, like I'm not trying to like, I don't know, steal the spotlight, just trying to help people out. But like that, it's been fun. Like it's such all the new things that they've added to the game. Like they have like when I first played the game and I was playing essentially single player, and like they kind of added a whole thing now where you're essentially playing, you kind of have to play it single player, where you're playing with companions and like NPCs that you're playing in the games. I've been playing a ton of the like tower defense mode, which was the new thing that they added like in Rise. that like I really wasn't into. I only did it as I like had to progress the story. But then like now I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna do all that for the time being. Like, yeah, I'll each one takes a even longer than a normal match or whatever, but like because you're fighting hordes of monsters instead of just one, like you're doing 10 times damage each time, and that just feels good to see. Like suddenly like the one shot I'm pulling off does like 1,000 damage. I'm like, this feels great. I love this. Like,
yeah, and they do, like the little bit I've seen of you play the game and the game in action, like they do a pretty good job of that in those games of like the heavy hits feel heavy. Like when you land a heavy blow on an enemy or whatever, you're like, okay, yeah, that felt nice.
But yeah, I've been playing a lot of Monster Hunter Rise, but also I've been equally splitting my time. Like anytime like I start playing that game for a little bit longer, I'm like, but I really want to play some more Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And like I'm honestly very, very pleasantly surprised with that game as a whole, just because like when I when I bought Xenoblade Chronicles 3, I wasn't even like specifically going to buy that game. I was just like, I guess, you know, I kind of have an obligation. Like I've played this series like 3, I guess, out of the Xenoblade games. Yeah. So I was like, I should probably just buy this one because like I did enjoy it, but I wasn't like super excited even when that game came out. And then when I beat Xenoblade Chronicles 2 before I started 3 and then like started playing 3, I was like, nope. I'm so hooked into the series. Like, I can't believe I didn't buy this game day one. And like,
well, they sort of like, I feel like it just kind of came out of nowhere. And maybe it's just because I knew I wasn't going to get it and wasn't paying full attention. And I've been busy with moving and stuff, so I'm not like on top of everything. But I do feel like all of a sudden, like in the Nintendo channel in our Discord, people were just like, talking about Xenoblade, and I was like, wait, what? It's out already?
I love our Xenoblade channel in the Discord. That's what the Nintendo channel has become.
I love it. It goes hard every now and then. I love it.
I mean, I'm still so far behind because like they're doing their best to not like get spoilers, but I'm still like only in chapter 4 of that game. And like you were over the other day, and
which chapter 4 is 60 hours into the game, by the way. Which, to be fair, you do play pretty thoroughly when you're playing through games. Like, not necessarily 100% every last thing, but I feel like you are, like, take your time while you're playing. Not necessarily DJ pace, like, where you're tiptoeing through the game, but you're definitely a thorough player.
That is a very generous way to describe how I play. But yeah, I was playing through and I was trying to show you some of the mechanics, and, like, we got to this big cut scene, and you're like, whoa, is this, like... an important, like, is this like a climax? I was like,
felt like the end of the game.
There's like a climax every hour in this game. Like everything is the highest stakes. Everything is so melodramatic, and I love it. I love every second of it. How like overwrought everything is. It's so it's a blast. I'm loving it.
Well, it's almost like in my mind, I'm kind of thinking about it now. I'm like, well, if you had like a story arc that essentially played out, because it's very anime and it's like energy and everything.
Oh yeah.
So, like, if you had a story arc of, like, a full season of an anime show of, like, even, like 24 episodes, and, like, every one of those episodes usually has, like, a huge climax scene. Not every show, obviously. That some of them have, like, you know, the build-up or whatever, but a lot of those shows have, like, one big battle at the end of every show, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, if Xenoblade is kind of like that, okay, you're working your way through, like, each kind of episode of the story. Not that it's necessarily broken up in that structure, but... yeah, I was really digging. I mean, I know more than well enough by now to not play this game, not because it's not good, but just because I'm not going to play it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was pretty impressed with everything you were showing. Like the menus are really odd. I'll let you dig into it. But yeah, it was just like I was really digging everything that I saw in action as you were digging into the game.
Yeah, I think I'll save like a meatier discussion for another episode.
Yeah.
Especially when Randall gets back on. Just because
there's more JRPG synergy between you two.
Yeah, but I've kind of also readjusted how I've approached the game, because I know in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, like I was really burnt out on like all the cutscenes, and like the way that I've approached 3 is I've kind of like anticipated that and been like, all right, I'll play this game when I'm in the mood to like play a bunch and then also just sit back and watch a bunch. Like, I'm not going to play it if I'm like not in the mood to also just set the controller down for like a full 30 minutes. Like, and like essentially watch like an episode of a TV show. Like it's always ridiculous. There's always something new happening. And I'm like so much more, I think, relaxed in my approach than maybe how I was with 2 or even 1, which, God, that was over a decade ago at this point when I first played 1. Oh my God. But yeah, it's a trip. And I don't know, maybe I'll go back to Xenosaga and Xenogears at one point, but I'm just enjoying it right now.
Yeah, that's good to hear though. Good to hear that like you went from like being like not necessarily thinking like I'm gonna grab this right away and then getting like, oh, okay, I'm swept up in the excitement, because I do that every time too. Like I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not gonna play this day one, or I'm not gonna buy it right away, and then okay, it's the release date's getting a little closer, let me pre-order it. Okay. I even cracked we'll save it for later. I don't even think Randall's had a chance to dig into it yet, but that Demon Throttle game that had like, it was originally like, apparently it's going to be a game on Switch that's physical only, from Devolver, and it's actually from the developer of Gato Roboto, and it's like a top-down like ground-based shoot 'em up, but you're like, you know, like vertically scrolling, at least the clips I've seen, and it's like you're just like walking vertically, but it's like you're on the ground. I think you might even be able to jump and stuff, but it looks really awesome. It's got like a really great like 8-bit aesthetic, just really awesome. And I was like, it's a limited run, or I forget which company was putting it out, but I was like, I got to pre-order it on like a special website. Okay, I'm just gonna let that game go by me and whatever. And then Randall ordered it, and our buddy ParaDyme ordered it, and I was like, shit, they're gonna get it, and I'm gonna be so fucking mad. And ParaDyme got his, and I'm pretty sure Randall got his. But I was like, God damn it. And then I was on Amazon Prime Amazon, but on Amazon, I saw that they had Demon Throttle on there, and it's not like the collector's edition that has like the slipcase and the cool everything, but I was like, shit, I can't pass up on this twice, and I don't have to like make an account on some website and make, I was like, I can just order it right now. So I was like, shit, and I'm gonna order the Turtles Shredders collection, which they keep pushing the date of that back. It was supposed to come out at the end of August, and now it's like saying the end of September, and who knows when that's going to come out, because I was going to try to sync up with Glenn and play that on Switch, or we were talking about that. Yeah. But I guess just real briefly, since I mentioned our buddy ParaDyme, whose actual name is Ben, I feel so weird sometimes when I'm talking to him. I call him ParaDyme, and like when him and I are just chatting all the time, and I'm like, oh, I feel like an idiot, and then. But I also am like, that's what he goes by online, so I should just call him that. I don't know, but regardless. My buddy Ben and our pal ParaDyme. I didn't mean to do a double alliteration there, but anyways, we've been doing some of these streams, not actually on our Twitch channel, but on the Indie Game Collective channel, which he's kind of like the head honcho over there and got things started. And yeah, we have been doing these kind of tag team streams where we'll just like pick a handful of demos. And part of the reason I wanted to mention this on the podcast is because I found it pretty funny. I think we've done 3, maybe 4 of these streams now. At first we were like, we're going to do one every week. And then we were like, okay, maybe every other week. Okay, maybe every month. Okay, and then and the first one we did 5 games each. And then we were like, how about 4 next time? And then this one we were like, how about let's do 3 each? And then like he even texted me beforehand, like, hey, let's try to keep it to 2 hours.
Yes.
I was like, you want to cut it to 2 games? He's like, no, we can still do 3. So we did 3 games each. But by the end, like he did his 3 first and I did my 3 second. And like I was just like, okay, let's just rip through these. Like I'm getting tired.
Oh, man.
Because we didn't start until like 8:00 at night. But I just thought it was so funny, like how we've like not necessarily devolved. It's actually just like, let's rein in the scope and make it more reasonable and not like burn through all the demos that we want to check out in one night.
There's too many games, man.
Exactly. But I did want to give just a quick shout out to 2 that I played. I checked out 3, one that I already have a video for, which is the only reason I'm going to skip over that one, Roto Force, but I will recommend that game very highly. But I did check out this game called Bat Boy, and I just played the first level and a half of this game, and like at first glance, I mean, you just see it in action. It's like another kind of 8-bit looking NES inspired puzzle platformer, like it, very Shovel Knight-esque. I hate just like comparing a game to another game all
Games
the time.
exist to be compared to be other games.
It is what it is. But it very much, and I'm glad that because I don't think like a game should just have a monopoly. Like if somebody, it shouldn't be like, hey, Shovel Knight was awesome, so nobody else should ever be able to make a 8-bit NES flavored, inspired, neo retro platformer. So, and this game has very much its like own set of mechanics. Again, it's Bat Boy, so you're playing as like this baseball kid, and a lot of the enemies are actually like throwing baseballs at you, and you actually can like hit them right back as like they're like, almost like projectiles, and you can slap them back at the enemies. But you can even like, if you're holding down up or down, you can like hit that baseball or that projectile on a 45-degree angle. So there might be like a switch. It gets very like kind of puzzly because you can also hold down like a charge mechanic where you like, if you hold it down long enough, you throw your bat and then it will like spin in place, like in its designated spot at like the end of the arc of the throw or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then you can land on that bat as like a double jump. So you don't have like a regular double jump, but it's almost like a bounce pad platform. And so it gets pretty, even in just like the first level and a half that I played, it gets pretty puzzly on like the just traversing through the like main course of the level, which is not what I expected. I kind of just expected hack and slash retro platformer. And it's like, oh man, this is like very much like, I don't say that Shovel Knight comparison lightly. Like, I think this has like potential to be like, maybe they might not be able to squeeze like 8 games out of it and turn it into a full franchise. But like, I very much think this could be like on that par. Like the music was awesome. The pixel art was amazing. The controls were amazing. Like I almost like was glad that I cut it short on the demo stream. Cause I was just like, oh nice. I'm not going to be spoiled on any of the like, I basically just played like the tutorial and learned to, saw a little bit, but it was so, even the second stage was like not even it was a snow level, but it was also like a feudal Japanese level as well. Like it was like doubly themed. I was like, man, I don't want to spoil this if they're going to really be like mixing it up that much from stage to stage. I'm really excited. Yeah, when you hit the enemies, they kind of like roll and like kind of bowl into one another. It's just so cool. And I also played, and I'll just mention this really briefly, but I played this demo for this game called Rhythm Quest. And I think I might have even mentioned a game from the same developer, Colors of Your World, on the podcast before. Mm-hmm. It was like a game jam game I checked out a long time ago that had like a challenge mode, just a precision platformer that was really cool. And this game actually has a really similar, like really just pretty pastel pixel art aesthetic, but it's like a like kind of like a Bit Trip Runner style game. But unlike Bit Trip Runner, the music is synced up, not sunk up, but synced up perfectly with like when it's synced up to when you press the button that's on the beat to the music. Where like a lot of rhythm games do the thing where it's like when you're clearing the obstacle is when it's like lined up with the beat of the music. So
nope.
Yeah, this is just done absolutely perfectly, and it's done like every visual cue. There's like a nice little like meter on the bottom. There's like a little square almost for every beat, and like you can kind of see. And basically, it's just a 2-button game. You either jump or attack, and then it starts throwing in these like syncopated rhythms where you have to like jump and then like time like your attack right as you land, so that you can like land on a safe spot. Like, just a really gorgeous game. I only played through the first, and it's just the demo. The game, neither of these games are out yet, Bat Boy or Rhythm Quest, but really gorgeous, like almost 16-bit-ish pixel art, maybe 8-bit, I don't know, but whatever. Really nice pixel art, and it seems like every world you play as like a different character. Like there's kind of like just this main like, I don't know, this girl that you play as on the first world that she didn't seem to have any specific like, but like there was like a goose that I saw, and like this samurai character, and like a few other. It seems like every world is like its own like flavor, but it's just gorgeous presentation, amazing music, and just really solid rhythm arcade action. It seems like it would be great even on like mobile. You could just have it on like, I don't know if it's supposed to come out on mobile, but you could just have like either side of the screen tap for jump and attack. It's like, since it's just that 2-button game, and it's essentially like an auto scroller otherwise. So really fantastic stuff. But I think we've done enough rambling and gushing at this point, more than I expected this week, but it's inevitable. I feel like some of these duo episodes are bound to go longer than some of the trios for whatever reason, because it's just like, let's dig in. Why not? We're both here. We're sitting down for this. But yeah, as always, you can find us on the internet at pursuingpixels.com. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't need to do any more rambling. So until next week, we will catch you then. And until then, take care.
Bye. to not do the tongue click thing, because I feel like that cuts through audio so much, and I'm like, God damn it! I was so good at it until the very end.
I don't mind when you do it. Like I edit some of them out when they're like, when they are just like, you're just gearing up to talk. But some of them, when they're like, they seem appropriate when they're like
a punctuation.
Like that's just or like it's just like a habit of your speech. Like you're just, because sometimes you do it like, it's almost like the same as like a gasp kind of like, where you're almost like just, it's like a way to react without going like,
yeah,
you know, it's like a way to just be like quickly like I'm going to chime in a second.
Yeah.
You know,
but like,
I never
feel
mind
like it's one of those things that like bothers people, especially on an I think podcasts in particular, like it's something that wouldn't bug you in like a conversation, but when you have an earbud in your
it's
ear,
when people listen with headphones in. Yeah. Cause I always listen to podcasts on just like my speaker on my phone.
Yeah.
And I hear it and it can bug me or I can notice it, but like it never drives me nuts. But yeah, if you have headphones in, it's like, oof.
That's a gross sound to be right in your eardrum.
Yeah, I remember when Kevin Cole was on the podcast, he was like, oh yeah, like we were talking about editing or something. He's like, oh yeah, I usually edit out all the mouse sounds. I was like, I try my best.